Hi there, haven't done a video in a while. Today I want to talk about optimism. I consider myself an optimist. I think optimism is very important in life and in language learning, and I'll explain why. First of all, let me say that I was recently in France with my wife. We had one night in Brulon, which is in the Sarthe, with some friends. In other words, we landed at Charles de Gaulle Airport. We drove to Brulon, spent the rest of the day, and then the next morning visiting small villages in the south with our friends. Then we drove on to Vannes in Brittany, in Bretagne, which is a fantastic little town, walled city, medieval city, surrounded by Le Morbihan, which is sort of like an inland bay with islands and pine trees and lots of oyster parks. And we visited around there, and it was quite spectacular, and we played a bit of golf. Then we went up to Brest, where I met John, one of my viewers, and his in-laws, who cooked us a lovely meal of crêpes, which are these pancakes from Brittany, both salty buckwheat pancakes with egg and ham and cheese, and a sweet wheat pancake with chocolate filling, and visited the little town, and it was lovely. And then we continued on the northern coast, played another game of golf, got to Saint-Malo, which is a lovely town, visited in Saint-Malo, visited in Dinan, which is spectacular, went down to Rennes, which is another beautiful old, the capital of Brittany. Following day we did Saint-Malo, went to Le Havre, where we have some friends in Normandy, and then had 2 nights in Reims for some of you. Reims, where there's a magnificent cathedral. It's also the home of Champagne. We had a lovely trip, came home. Yesterday was my birthday, 69 years old, 69 years young. In France, go to the bookstore, and there's books like, Le Débâcle, Everything is Bad, La France se suicide, all kinds of negativity. I'm not into negativity. I think France is a great country, very well run, roads are in great condition, buses, everything works well. They have their problems, like all countries. They will fix those problems. It won't be ideal. They're fed up with their politicians. They're fed up with this, that, and the other. It's a democratic country. They will vote. Be the odd demonstration, the odd overturned tomato truck by unhappy farmers, but they will resolve their problems peacefully, and it'll either be a right-wing party or a left-wing party or a coalition of this or that, but through this democratic process, they will find solutions. I believe that we as a society are capable of finding solutions, because many of us live in democracies, which are not perfect, but they're capable of finding solutions as long as there is some sense of compromise and goodwill and looking for, common ground, even though there will be diametrically opposed positions, left wing, right wing, union, management, you name it. I also believe, and I have commented before on the book, The Rational Optimist, that things are better today than they have ever been. There was a book by Steven Pinker pointing out that we have less violence today than we have had historically, and it's been going down for the last couple of 100 years, and particularly in the last 20 or 30 years. If you don't believe me, buy the book by Steven Pinker called, you look up Steven Pinker violence on Google, you'll find the book. Look up, I think the man's name is Ridley, The Rational Optimist. And I am optimistic. That doesn't mean that I am never disappointed. I hope that the Vancouver Canucks hockey team will win. Sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. I follow world events, and some of them are very discouraging. The Ebola outbreak, obviously the violence in Ukraine, the violence in the Middle East, violence in Africa, global warming, economic crisis. There's all kinds of this bad news out there, and newspapers prefer to write about bad news rather than good news. But I try to focus on things that I can influence and not to get bent out of shape by things that I cannot influence. So, I read about the plight of these internal refugees in Ukraine. I send some money to Ukraine to help, in a small way, look after some of those displaced people. Read about biblical almost floods in Serbia. Sent some money off to Serbia to help those people a little bit. Very, very minor contribution. At least I'm able to do something. But I focus on things that I can influence. So my health, eating healthy, staying physically active, learning languages, hopefully being helpful and useful to people around me. I vote because I think it's very important to vote. I think it's very, almost destructive to spend so much time complaining about how corrupt and useless politicians are. If you really feel that way, run for politics yourself. There is no other solution other than democracy. Dictator doesn't work. If you're very lucky, you get a benign and all-knowing dictator. But mostly, you're more likely to get someone who concentrates decision-making. And so if they make a bad decision, everybody suffers. Whereas in democracy, you basically decentralize decision-making. Democracy is not just voting. It's also the fact that you allow different organizations to represent different interest groups to interact amongst each other. And through all of this decentralization of decision-making, we end up with less dramatically bad decisions. So I'm an optimist. I participate to the extent that I vote. I've thought about it, but I've never gone into politics. I was playing hockey with my old-time buddies there. Everybody's over 65, some are over 70. And one fellow, and in fact, he's my teammate, but when we had a game and we ran into each other, he got me square in the face because I had my head down, and he was going skating off towards the bench. He ended up with a big red mark on his shoulder, even though he had shoulder pads on. He said, "Boy, I hit your head pretty hard with my shoulder. I'm surprised you even got up." But I really didn't feel it that much. But he said, this is the best time of our lives. The only problem is that we're old. But here's a guy. He shows me, first of all, he's got a big hernia here. And he says, yeah, the doctor said if it doesn't hurt, better just to leave it. And then he shows me here, I got a pacemaker. He has a pacemaker, like there's a bulge here on his chest. On top of which, he has such cold fingers that he has to wear mitts to play hockey because he can't use gloves because his fingers are too cold. And he says to me, boy, this is the best time of our lives. The only problem is that we're old. In other words, when you eventually get to my age, you have less pressure if you've been putting money aside that you can actually live comfortably. And you don't have the pressure, you don't have the worries, the kids are all grown up. You're not, there's less pressure, work-related pressure and so forth. It's wonderful. I can get up and I can read a book, or I can, study Ukrainian or Korean. And if I want to, I go play golf. If I want to travel, I travel. It's amazing. It's amazing. I mean, it's only the last few years that I've been able to do this. It's this wonderful feeling. I can go and kill time. I can go sit in a coffee shop and do nothing. Get together with friends and yak. So it's wonderful. So, and I, to relate everything back to language learning, you have to assume that you are going to succeed. You have to have that optimistic view. But by the same token, whatever you do achieve, you should be satisfied with it. Work as hard as you can, and then say, wow, look at what I did. And this is my approach, not only to language learning, to everything. Try as hard as I can, but don't get unhappy if I don't achieve some unrealistic goal, because it's so important to stay positive and optimistic. And it's the same with our world. I mean, there are many things wrong with the world. We have, this police violence in the U.S. that we're reading about in Ferguson, and tremendous inequality, increasing inequality according to some, but we never know how accurate these statistics are. And obviously, inequality is not a good thing in society. And I think that people who have more money pay a higher rate of taxes, and because they've been lucky enough, either because of the education they received or just things that happened to them, they've been lucky enough to earn more money, they pay in. And other people who were less lucky, they manage to perhaps gain some benefits, whether it be in services or in a redistribution of income or whatever. And so society isn't perfect, but the society we live in today, in terms of life expectancy, health, opportunity, education possibilities, and so forth, is much better than any society previous. I firmly believe that. And we have to try to overcome those problems that still exist in our society. And some of them are quite threatening, like the problems in the Middle East, problems in Ukraine, Africa, and so forth. But none of those prevent us from doing the things that we can do to make our lives better, and perhaps in minor ways to contribute towards in terms of finding political solutions or supporting political solutions. At the very least, stating our views, as I have done. I've stated my views, for example, on the Ukrainian situation. But within all of that, I don't allow things that I cannot control to depress me. It's not always easy. Sometimes you read about the oncoming economic crisis, violence, and stuff. But those things, whatever is going to happen, is going to happen. The more people who have an optimistic point of view, looking for solutions, trusting systems, trusting other people, the more likely we are to find solutions. So optimism, extremely important. People need to be optimistic. The sort of sense of doom and gloom that I often hear, everybody's corrupt, the world, the planet is being destroyed, blah, blah, blah. I don't buy it. We can't destroy the planet. We may do things that will be harmful for some animal species, harmful for human beings, perhaps. And so we have to find concrete solutions to mitigate against these problems. But we can't destroy the planet. And I think I am again confident that technology will find solutions. Technology will find, already as a result of technology, we use less and less energy per unit of GDP, and these trends will continue. And we will find more benevolent forms of energy. It's already happening. We'll consume less energy, we'll produce it in ways that are less damaging to the environment. We will continue to find solutions. So just want to mention that the day after my birthday, I'm an optimist, and I think optimism is a very positive attitude to have. It has benefits for us as individuals, and if more people are optimistic, it has benefits across all of society. So that's just what I wanted to say, and that does have application for language learning. Bye for now.